Chapter 18, Using Punishment, A Question of Ethics. Sometimes we are magnificent as trainers of dogs and humans, and other times our brilliant ideas don't turn out exactly as we planned. In this book, The Sin of Wages, William Abernathy, an internationally recognized business consultant, tells us stories about trying to demonstrate the difference between positive and negative reinforcement. Abernathy was teaching a class on performance management to prison guards who had a tendency to use plenty of negative reinforcement and punishment. To demonstrate the benefits of positive reinforcement, Abernathy took 2 rats and 2 Skinner boxes to the prison. A Skinner box is a box designed to teach an animal to press a bar. It can be set up to offer either positive or negative reinforcement. He used shaping to teach the first rat to press a bar in the box to receive positive reinforcement, a food pellet. Exactly as expected, the rat was pressing the bar for food in about 30 minutes. The second rat was put in a Skinner box that was set to deliver mild shocks. To avoid the shocks, the rat was negatively reinforced for bar pressing. Pressing the bar would prevent future shocks. Usually, teaching the rat to press the bar takes much longer with negative reinforcement than with positive reinforcement. The rat is so busy trying to escape the shock, it doesn't engage in the desired responses at first. On this particular day, however, something very strange happened in the negative reinforcement demonstration. Somehow, as soon as the shock came on, the rat jumped up to avoid the shock and landed directly on the bar, turning off the current. To Abernathy's dismay, the guard witnessed a freak accident where negative reinforcement worked much faster than positive reinforcement, perhaps strengthening their belief in management through intimidation and punishment. Abernathy told everyone to take a break. During the break, one of the guards picked up the rat that had received the positive reinforcement and began to play with it. A second guard saw this and decided to play with the negatively reinforced rat. When he picked it up, the rat immediately bit his finger. He began to swing the rat around, but it would not let go. Finally, after the rat had been separated from the guard's bloody finger, one guard summarized what he had learned in this day's lesson. "Well," he said, "you can get someone to do what you want through negative reinforcement, you just don't want to be around them." This is a true story, and it gives dog trainers something to think about. When you train a dog that associates you with positive reinforcement, the dog is usually happy and eager to come to you. When you use a great deal of punishment in your training, the dog will not be as eager to work with you. Smart dog. Remember that punishment is a continuum, and the levels of punishment vary from mild to highly aversive. Mild forms of punishment include withdrawing attention, time out, and verbal reprimands such as no or ah. Physical punishers range from mild snap-release leash corrections to shock collars. Shock treatment. Because an electric shock is so aversive, shock is perhaps the most controversial form of punishment in dog training. Shock collars are used by some hunting dogs and shutdown trainers because the collars provide a way of controlling the dog when it is working at a distance. Electronic fencing also involves the use of shock as a punisher. A wire is buried around the perimeter of the yard, and the dog is fitted with a special collar that delivers a shock when it crosses the perimeter. There are also shock mats designed to prevent animals from getting on the furniture and shock collars that are activated when a dog barks. Shock collars have settings that permit different levels of shock. Milder levels are supposedly used for training, and more intense levels are used to deliver punishment. Shock collars are currently used by some expert trainers, and they are sold to novice dog owners who don't have a clue how shock can affect their dog. We've seen many dogs wearing shock collars that are jumpy, nervous, and quick to bite if touched when they didn't expect it. Obviously, this is not the kind of behavior the owners were trying to elicit. Guidelines for using punishment. With any form of punishment, you need to consider some very important issues. If punishment is to be used, you must attempt to reduce any negative side effects by providing a reinforcement schedule that is rich in positive reinforcement for appropriate behaviors. Then decide on the form and intensity of punishment. The least aversive methods that will be effective should be used. If no corrects the problem, it is not ethical to use anything more intense. Try the punisher on yourself. Any trainer who considers using aversive punishers such as a shock collar, should first try the shock on himself or herself in order to be aware of the level of physical discomfort the animal will experience. Punishment should be delivered consistently and immediately after the problem behavior. And any time punishment is used, the dog should be learning new replacement skills for the inappropriate behavior and should be receiving a rich schedule of positive reinforcement. Tough questions about punishment. If trainers were asked to list some reasons for using punishment, one would be that the punishment can be effective in decreasing behavior problems. Another might be that milder forms of punishment seem to be easier to use than positive reinforcement procedures. Finally, some trainers believe that for certain dogs that with severe behavior problems, not using punishment would mean withholding a potentially successful treatment. Most dog trainers will admit that they see a place for mild forms of punishment, such as withholding attention for misbehavior, verbal reprimands, and leash corrections. The real controversy begins with more aversive punishers, such as smacking the dog under the chin and using pinch or shock collars. The majority of training would not use intensive aversive procedures such as these for routine training or mild behavior problems. But at some point, once we get beyond the mild punishers, we have to make difficult ethical decisions. Would you shock a dog for getting into the garbage? We hope not. Would you shock a former racing greyhound for chasing cars if you knew the dog would end up in a shelter if the cat chasing didn't stop? Would it make a difference in your decision if you were told that to fix the problem behavior you would have to shock the dog for months? Would it make a difference if you were told that 2 or 3 mild shocks would fix the problem? What about the dog living in the country that develops a fondness for herding deer? Would you consider shock as a punisher if you believe that the dog might accidentally be shot by a hunter? Would you use aversive punishers to stop a behavior that could result in injury to people or other animals? These are kinds of questions dog owners and trainers need to think about. The punishment controversy is not as simple as all or nothing. These are exciting times for dog trainers. The Association of Pet Dog Trainers, APDT, is developing a code of ethics, and there is potential for dog training to develop as a respected profession. In human psychology, behavior analysis has seen tremendous growth as a profession in the last few decades. Some states now certify behavior analysts and dog trainers can benefit from lessons learned in human behavioral treatment. In developmental disabilities facilities in Florida, all staff are permitted to use positive reinforcement with clients. The effective use of punishment procedures, such as timeout, requires more training, and only a certified behavior analyst may implement the more aversive forms of punishment. Even then, the punishment is approved, reviewed carefully, and monitored by qualified staff outside of the facility. The last word on punishment. Any decision to use punishment should be made only after trying positive alternatives. The use of aversive punishment procedures can be justified only if the problem behavior presents a threat to the dog's well-being or the safety of other people or animals. Aversive punishers, such as shock, should never be put in the hands of unskilled novice dog owners. The bottom line when it comes to ethics is that our dogs love us. We owe it to them to treat them the same way we'd like to be treated. Steps that should precede the use of aversive punishers with dogs. Functional analysis and behavioral diagnostics of problem behavior. Why is the dog doing this? Any medical problems treated as a first priority. Use positive reinforcement techniques. Environmental solutions if appropriate. Modify trainer behavior and other training variables. Punishment implemented as a last resort by a qualified trainer. A Canine Bill of Rights. 1. Dogs have a right to a rich, stimulating environment. 2. Dogs have a right to time and attention from a caring owner. 3. Dogs have a right to effective training procedures. If behavior problems are to be addressed, a competent person must be involved. 4. Dogs have a right to ongoing veterinary care and a comprehensive assessment, functional analysis, and behavioral diagnostics for behavior problems. 5. Dogs have a right to an ongoing education and the chance to learn new skills. We should treat dogs the way we love the way we'd like to be treated.